What's going on, guys? It's your boy Big Hero Chris back at you with another one. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe, give me a thumbs up, ring the notification bell, hit me up on Twitter, TikTok, the community post. You already know the vibes, man. And I am back at you with your AEW WrestleDream review. And before I get into the video, let me just offer my condolences and say rest in peace to Bryan Danielson after Jon Moxley and the Blackpool Combat Club proceeded to murder this man live on television, live on pay-per-view. Jon Moxley beat Bryan Danielson. He is now your new AEW champion. He did everything that he said he was going to do. He gave Bryan Danielson the Warriors end that he said that he was going to do. Before the match even started, before the bell even rang, you had Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson fighting while Final Countdown was playing the whole time. And the only thing I could think of was, I think it was last year for Anarchy in the Arena when it was the Blackpool Combat Club taking on the Elite, when the Final Countdown was playing the whole time and Matthew Jackson was like, cut it off, this song is costing us $10,000 every time it plays. That is the only thing I could think of. But you get into the match, man, and it's violent. Surprisingly, there was no blood. Like, no blood. Like, there was a little cuts here and there. But as far as Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson match goes, nobody bled. I was kind of taken aback by that. But Jon Moxley ended up choking out Bryan Danielson. No pin, no tap out. He just choked him out. The referee called off the match. And then you have the rest of the Blackpool Combat Club pull up. Claudio had a duffel bag. And I'm like, what's in the duffel bag? And for some reason, they put the AEW Championship in the duffel bag. Took out the plastic bag. And you already knew what time it was, man. The Planet's champion getting choked out by plastic. Crazy. You even had Willow and Darby Allin come out to try to make the save. Darby ran off the Blackpool Combat Club. Willow was shaking on Bryan Danielson. But then Willow had this look in his eyes like he was about to do evil things, like turn heel. And he hit the Busaiku knee on Darby Allin, which is Bryan Danielson's finishing move. And then the Blackpool Combat Club tie up Darby Allin in the corner. Willow puts the plastic bag over Bryan Danielson's head and he suffocates this man. And then you had the AEW locker room coming out. You had Private Party, Jeff Jarrett. I think I saw a whole bunch of other wrestlers come out trying to make the save. And the Blackpool Combat Club was fighting them off. But then you had more officials and wrestlers come out. And the BCC ended up dipping out. And it was one of those moments where you had commentary going, oh, I can't believe this happened. I've been commentating and sitting behind this desk for many years. I've never seen anything like this. I think he even had Excalibur sounded like he was about to cry, or if he was crying, which was crazy. Right? They did a really good job of selling the fact that not only is this Bryan Danielson's last match, because that was part of the deal, this is his last match as a full-time wrestler, but you had the Blackpool Combat Club commit this heinous act to close out this show. And I was scrolling through Twitter before I started recording just to see what people were thinking. Some people were thinking like this is the most Bryan Danielson / Jon Moxley thing to ever happen. A lot of people weren't really feeling it. Some people were kind of in between. I'm like, if you're gonna write Bryan Danielson off as a full-time wrestler, this is pretty much how you do it. And it's not necessarily him retiring. It's just him stepping away from the full-time action for a little bit. So this does leave the door open for him to come back and get his eventual revenge on the Blackpool Combat Club. So there's always that. As for the rest of the show, this took place in whose house? Swerve's house. It took place in Tacoma, Washington, which is the home of Swerve, Darby, Bryan Danielson, but most importantly, Swerve. Swerve makes his return for the first time since All Out, since his steel cage match with Hangman. Prince Nana brings him out. He's doing the dance. Swerve comes out. He gets pyro. He gets the superstar pyro and everything. And it was pretty cool. It's a pretty cool shot of Swerve doing the pose while the pyro is going off. And then he gets down to business. He addresses Prince Nana. He addresses his future. He says that he is cleared to compete. even though he still, gets the tingles every now and then. He gets tingling sensations from his neck, from his fingers to his head, shoulders, knees and toes. And as he's talking, MVP and Shelton Benjamin pull up, and they're saying, we see you talking about your future. Your future lays with us, the Hurt Syndicate, man. Stop playing. Leave this clown Nana in the dust. And when Swerve actually says that, Swerve hanging out with the Syndicate would be major. It will be a major power play. Swerve loves the power, but he also loves Prince Nana because he's family. Even though Prince Nana still sells weed to kids, which I'm like, yo, don't do that. But and he says a whole bunch of other things that he doesn't like about Nana. But that's the thing about family. Even though you may not get along all the time, even though there's things that you may get on your nerves about your family, that's still your family, and that's more important than the power. And Shelton Benjamin's like, yo, what are you doing, man? We're presenting you with this lucrative business deal, and you're turning us down? That's not cool. And the whole time, I'm sitting and I'm waiting for Bobby Lashley to come out, and it never happens. You get a face-to-face between Shelton Benjamin and Swerve, and it looks like they're about to fight, and then you have people like the referees and security breaking it up, but no Bobby Lashley. And outside of the fact of it being in Swerve's home of Washington, you could have had this on Dynamite. Like, this wasn't necessary. If you weren't gonna have Bobby Lashley pull up and spear somebody or put somebody in the Hurt Lock, what was the point of this outside of it being a thing for Swerve in his home, right? This is a Dynamite segment. This whole meeting could have been an email, right? But we already know what time it is. Bobby Lashley is coming. I just don't know when. I thought tonight would be the night, but yeah. As far as the rest of the pay-per-view goes, man, this to me was a tale of two halves, right? The first half of this pay-per-view was everything I want and love about AEW. Now, the build to this show was hot garbage. Outside of the main event and a couple of other matches, the overall build of the show was garbage. It sucked. It was a weak build, but you knew that the show would deliver. And the first match that was on the card was between Hangman and Switchblade, Jay White. And this was a good match. This was one of those matches where either person could have won, and I would have been cool either way. I predicted Jay White winning. I was right with my prediction. And surprisingly, there was no shenanigans. Jay White won clean. He is on stage 1 of the Jay White Revenge Tour, so he beat Hangman. Even though you had Hangman flipping out at the end, the crowd was chanting F you Hangman cowboy shit. So they were kind of split on that end, but they were really against Hangman Adam Page. And after the match, Hangman was losing his mind. He was flipping off everybody, but Jay White got the win. So the next person I'm assuming he's going after is Christian Cage, because that's the other person that cost him his opportunity at winning the AEW Championship. So I'm like, alright, cool. We're off to a good start. The next match was between Mariah May and Willow Nightingale. Another match where the build was weak, but the match delivered. This was a really good match. And there were several spots where I thought that Willow Nightingale was going to win. Even though I picked Mariah May to win, I was really hoping and praying and thinking that Willow was going to come out with the win. That wasn't the case. Mariah May ended up winning with the Storm 0, 1, 2, 3. She's still your women's champion, so I'm not mad at it. I would have been cool with Willow getting the dub, but it is what it is, man. It is what it is. So next up, we had a match between Shibata and Jack Perry for the TNT Championship. And it was okay. It was mostly Shibata beating the holy hell out of Jack Perry, but Jack Perry ended up getting the win. What ended up happening was Shibata had a sleeper locked in on Jack Perry. Jack Perry rolled through to the point where Shibata's shoulders were on the mat, and he got the surprise win. So I'm like, it was alright. It was an alright match. But the main thing what happened after the match. So after the match, you had Jack Perry beating up Shibata. And then you had Daniel Garcia come out and make the save. Now, my issue with this is Daniel Garcia has indeed re-signed with AEW, which is totally cool. I would have preferred to see Daniel Garcia come out tonight, instead of him coming out on Dynamite saying, giving his whole speech about restoring the feeling about and the best wrestling and all that, you could have just had him come out tonight, had it be a real surprise, legit surprise. Sean Ross could have reported the fact that Daniel Garcia resigned. We could all go hooray, but it would have been a legit surprise. But the surprise after this was you had the return of MJF. This was the first time we've seen him since All Out. He's been recording. He's been in movies. He's gonna be in the next Happy Gilmore movie. I think he's in another one that's coming out soon. But he comes out, and then him and Daniel Garcia start fighting, and then he eventually gets the beat down on Daniel Garcia. MJF gets on the mic and says, "You know what, bud? It's real funny that you told me that my Dynamite Diamond Ring was somewhere in Buffalo, because coincidentally I went to Buffalo and found it." And so he then starts beating up Daniel Garcia with the Dynamite Diamond Ring. But then you have the return of Adam Cole. So right now we have an All Out 2021 situation where you had returns and debuts back to back to back to back to back. But this time it's the returning of Adam Cole, baby. He comes out, he scares off MJF. And I'm like, man, I miss Adam Cole, but God, my from one skinny arm brother to another, man, my guy could have done some push-ups or something. But nevertheless, it's good to see Adam Cole back. At this point, I'm feeling good, man. I'm like, yo, this is my AEW. And something that really put this over the edge was the triple threat match between Will Ospreay, Ricochet, and Takeshita. And my God, Takeshita is a beast. He is a monster. He is a machine built for pro wrestling, because it seemed like no matter what Will Ospreay and Ricochet threw at Takeshita, he just kept powering up, man. He was like no selling the fighting spirit. He was no selling the flips. He was no selling the dives. Like, he caught Ricochet as he was doing the Sasuke special. I'm like, yo, this dude is a monster, right? And it got to the point where Ricochet and Will Ospreay ended up having to team up just to fight this man. Like, they were going Captain America and Bucky on Takeshita's ass, right? But that still wasn't enough. Takeshita is just a machine, man. It wasn't enough. But it got to a point where Takeshita ended up putting Ricochet through a table. And then it looked like Will Ospreay was about to, do the thing and win and retain his championship when Don Callis got involved. And he pulled the referee out the way. Will Ospreay got into Don Callis' face. And then you had a man in a hoodie pull up. And I'm like, is that one of the Usos? Wrong. It was Kyle Fletcher. He's officially a heel now. He turned heel. He attacked his best friend, Will Ospreay. He hit him in the back of the head with a screw. That damn screwdriver that Don Callis loves so much. Heel turn, heel turn, heel turn. Takeshita is now your new international champion. This is his first championship in AEW, and it's about time. This is something I've been waiting for the longest time for Takeshita. Big fan of his, and it's interesting to see what the Don Callis family has going forward. This is like the first time I've really and truly been interested in the Don Callis family, because you have Takeshita, you have Kyle Fletcher, you have Lance Archer, Powerhouse Hobbs is cleared, so you have a legit faction with all these dudes surrounding Don Callis. So yeah, and I'm making a bold prediction right now. I'm predicting that Will Ospreay and Ricochet tag team, and they win the tag team championships. I'm calling it right now. You heard it here first, straight out of the horse's mouth. So for some reason, you had a backstage segment between Jerry Lynn and Orange Cassidy, where Jerry Lynn was like, "Yo, man, if you really start being serious, you could be the man." I'm like, what's the point of this? This is another thing that could have been on Dynamite, but it is what it is. I already talked about the segment between Swerve and the Hurt Business, so it was after this where things started kind of going downhill, and this is where I said that it's a tale of two halves. This is where the second half of the show kind of started falling off a little bit for me, because we didn't get Bobby Lashley. For some reason, we got two random Dynamite segments back to back that were on the pay-per-view. And then we got Hologram versus the Beast Mortos. And don't get it twisted, this was a fine match. It was 2 out of 3 falls match. But this was a collision match. This really didn't need to be on the pay-per-view. This could have even been on the pre-show. Like, you could have swapped this for a women's match and I would have been totally fine. But Hologram gets the win. He's undefeated still. He's like 15-0 or whatever. So I'm like, alright. I kind of started checking out, like, because I like Hologram, but this wasn't a pay-per-view match. And then, speaking of the match that didn't need to be on the pay-per-view, I understand why, but this is a dynamite match between Darby Allin and Brody King. And again, I get it because Darby is from Washington, and Darby ended up getting the win over Brody King, and they ended up shaking hands after the match. Again, this was something that didn't need to be on the card. Like, if you would have taken this match, the 2 out of 3 falls match, the Ring of Honor Championship match between Mark Briscoe and Chris Jericho, this would have been a smoother pay-per-view, but we did unfortunately get the match between Chris Jericho and Mark Briscoe, and I was a little nervous. I thought that Chris Jericho was going to pull it out. He didn't, thank God. Mark Briscoe was still your Ring of Honor champion. But yeah, man, it was kind of spooky. It was a little bit frightening for me. But yeah, man, Mark Briscoe retained. Speaking of wrestlers retaining their championships, you had the AEW Tag Team title match between Young Bucks and, oh my God, is that Private Party? And I was really hoping, man, I thought tonight would be the night because you had a video package that featured the Amazing Red, one of my favorite all-time wrestlers, going back to TNA, one of my favorite wrestlers from the X Division. Amazing Red is the man that trained Private Party, so he's giving them a pep talk, saying like, look, man, tonight's the night, man. Y'all gotta let the shots go and get those tag team titles. And I'm thinking they're gonna do it, man. And especially with the way the match started, because you had Private Party come out, you had the Young Bucks on the mic, and they're pretty much saying the same thing that Jon Moxley said. The fact that they beat the Young Bucks 5 years ago and nothing really happened. The fact that they've been in AEW for 5 years and nothing's really happened for them as far as winning tag team gold or being featured on the pay-per-views, because this is the first pay-per-view that Private Party has been on in 5 damn years. So you figure with this story that they're building up, tonight will be the night, and it wasn't. Private Party ended up losing. The Young Bucks are still your AEW Tag Team Champions. You had Stokely Hathaway and at ringside watching the match, and he was kind of looking at them like, I told y'all so. Y'all need me. And I'm like, you really could have had a special moment. I have no doubt in my mind that Private Party will win the tag team titles, but I feel like tonight was the night. Like, AEW really should have struck with it while the iron was hot, and they didn't capitalize. So I don't know. I don't know if they win it and it feels like a missed opportunity because the crowd was behind them. The story made sense, but yeah. You also had, for some reason, Top Flight at ringside as well. So yeah. But anyway, that was your AEW WrestleDream, presented by Tony Khan, who was on the pre-show yelling about Antonio Inoki with Antonio Inoki's grandsons for some reason. Rico was linked up with the Maximum Male model, so that was pretty funny. But yeah, man, for the most part, I did enjoy WrestleDream. It was on pace to be a really, 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 really good show, and it kind of averaged out to like being good. It wasn't the greatest thing I've ever seen, but it wasn't the worst day either. But with that being said, guys, what did you think of WrestleDream? What did you think of this whole Blackpool Combat Club situation? Let me know in the comment section below. Of course, as always, like, comment, and subscribe. You guys take care. Bees, I'm out. Peace.